Okay, first we have chord. All right, so yeah, the lighting's looking much better. Think got a few colors here, and it's not so dark as it was before. I think the brick and wood textures are helping out as well. I'm really missing him having eyes. I find that a bit distracting that you haven't put in eyes in there. So I think it'd be worth doing that even at this late stage. I'm not sure what's happening with the render on his chest. It'd be interesting to look at if that's. I think what's happening is a skinning issue. I think that you might have some problems with the skinning where that could be touched up a bit. I'm guessing because it looked like when he was moving, it looked like see how it sort of looked like it was pulling outwards. Um, and then here, one thing that would really help is I'm guessing your arm is not in IK mode. So for that pounding shot, certainly the hand should be in IK mode so that it holds the this metal bar straight and doesn't have it move around so much. Um, so it can hold it still. And I feel like, the getting up, I may have talked about this before. I think that first part where he pops up and puts his hand up is okay. This second, from that pose to that pose, really looks very slow motion to me, as does this. Have him move a little bit quicker and maybe put in a couple pauses in there. Um, yeah, but and then I think if you can get, I don't know what the deal with the floor is, if there's no texture or if there's no light on it. I'm guessing that there's no material on the floor, or I don't know, but get some kind of floor in there because it's a little distracting to sort of have the solid black on the floor and also on the left here. But yeah, good improvements on this stuff. Okay, next we've got Mark. All right, so yeah, the lighting is looking a little better. One thing you can do, just focusing on the lighting. So for a moment, so you've got these outdoor images, and part of the reason right now they look like they're sort of painted on the walls, and part of the reason for that is that I think, well, twofold. One is you would expect it to be more of a source of light, so you'd wait kind of like a bright light with kind of a blue tint coming from this direction, which would certainly kind of, for example, light the front of this. You could put a big area light there. The other thing is that the interior lights are affecting the um, the colors and brightnesses of the clouds. And let me show you guys quickly how you can deal with that. A good trick for. Okay, so I've got a just a surface in here, like this. Might be your window. And let's just get two panes side by side and put the hypershade in here, hypershade, and you can just do assign new material and Lambert. And now let me show you the problem first and then I'll fix it. So I'll map a file, browse, and let's go here. I grabbed a cloud image. Okay. So, looks fine in here. Let's grab some kind of light. I'll use a point light because that will show the issue well, I think. And render that. And that's a little less obvious than I want. Let linear decay just to show the problem. Okay. All right. Well, anyways, you get the idea. It's unevenly lit and it's too dark and stuff. And what you really want is you want it to look just like the image did on the when you downloaded it. So so here is the trick. I'll go in here and let's just show our work area and organize it. Now this is mapped to the color of the Lambert, so we're actually going to break that connection, and instead we're going to map it to the incandescence of it. And first it'll look too bright, and when you first render it, it's actually going to look too bright. It's actually not that bad, but it's a little bit too bright compared to the original image. So then what we'll do is unlink it from any lights. So from the rendering menu, lighting, shading, well, actually, I think I can just select it and do break like links. That might be the easiest thing. Will that work? Let's see. Let's see what we had before, and let's keep this image here with that button. Now let's render it again. Aha! No, that looks about the same, actually. I don't know if the light linking thing broke. Let's double check here. Render, oops, sorry, tech lighting, light linking editor, object centric, plane. Oh, and that break thing didn't work. So for light linking, I've got the plane selected on one side. I'm just going to deselect that point light. Okay, so here's what this looks like now. Let's keep this image and render it again, and let's compare the two. What happened to the image I kept? Well, it's not that obvious, but the point of the matter is that now it's exactly that image. It shouldn't be lit by any light. Just light linking editor, object centric, plane. Let's make sure it's not lit by those either. Yeah. So that's like just what the original image looked like. And you could put more lights in here, like let's create another point light. Looks like it shouldn't be linked to that one either. And another one. So there's all these lights in here. And if I render it, this will make the difference more obvious. See, it looks fine. If it was linked to those, way too bright. But if it's not linked to those, in fact, it's not lit by any light because it has an incandescent map, and the incandescence map will show precisely the brightness of the pixels of the original image as long as you don't have any light on it. So, long story to say that would be a better way to do these windows. Okay, let's get back to this file. And this is kind of a finer point, but let me find a good frame for it when there's movement. If you're rendering this out of After Effects, which I imagine you are, it's hard to tell when it's not moving, but you see these kind of little horizontal lines that show up, especially when he's moving around quickly. That's interlacing. So in your render settings out of After Effects, you're going to want to change the interlacing settings to progressive, so you don't get those lines. So yeah, I mean, I think the big things now, I think there's some camera choices that could still be better. For example, this cut is kind of odd, right? He's standing screen right, and he's kind of got a lot of space behind him that's not doing much for us. And then he's over here. It's somewhat of a better composition, but I still think a lot of headroom here. A little bit pinned over to the left. I would kind of try to get him a little bit more, maybe on a third line, like where his head is kind of more here, and maybe the head is here. So maybe like get the head sort of here in the frame by adjusting the camera, and maybe coming around so we see the front of him a little bit more. This shot's not so bad, but again, you're moving in and and not changing the angle much. And I really think you could have the opportunity to come around. So what I would tend to do is start out with a wider shot than this, which is your establishing shot that sets the whole scene. And then you could probably just get away with just one cut where we kind of move in something kind of similar to this one or that one, but again, maybe coming around so we're seeing him from the front a little bit more. And as far as animation, yeah, a few things I think I pointed out before. Chest moving too fast. I don't know why this is going through the head here. You probably have some keyframes you need to remove there. There's some jumping around there. So some keyframes, again with the hands, some keyframes to delete there. And then the chest again is moving much too fast. So I might just delete those and redo it. I would find that easier. And I like this pose, except for again that the breathing is way too fast. So yeah, some stuff to fix, but it's coming along. Okay, next we've got Mario. So yeah, definitely improved. I think that I can see that the feet are sticking better. I think there's still some stuff that's a bit fast for me in here. And watch out for that. See the hands going right through each other. Try to just have one go over the other one. It's another character I think would really benefit from getting some eyes in there. We did go over that in the previous module. Yeah, and I like the animation. I like the pause and turning around. I mean, really, it's clear you put a lot of time into animating this. There's always room for improvement, but this one's pretty evolved in that regard. It's that kind of motion right there. That's just too fast. Yeah, and then the intersection there. Yeah, there's a few of those intersections. Look out for those, and have the arms go around each other. Yeah, like the camera following him, actually, that works well. I would say that the framing is a bit, I guess it's alright. I mean, it's quite empty on this side. And generally, and it's tricky with going back and forth, but this framing is good in that he starts out here, which might look odd, except you've given him room to move where he's going, and that's generally considered good framing. And similarly here, you've done the same thing, and you cut there, that's good. I feel like since his gestures seem to go a little bit in this direction, I would tend to put him over here a little bit more, especially since we've got this big empty space, but it's okay, it's not really problematic. I think that camera move works pretty well. Although again, I guess I wish when he's walking back this way, we had a little bit more room on that side of the screen. And that's again why maybe having him be more over here would be better, even if you keep some of those camera moves. And look out for this one. There's an animation issue here, which is good. And I think here's where I don't know, it just looks a little off balance for a moment there as he's sitting down, kind of right before he hits. So I'd either expect him, if he's not using anything to kind of support his weight, either sort of getting a leg behind him or kind of having his arm grab the back of the chair to brace himself. I think if he's just kind of going butt first, I think he would drop kind of quickly because he's off balance. And there's a little bit of, I guess the foot movement at the end's okay, but it look a little bit slippery. Yeah, with all that said, that's good. I think the lighting works well, and I might want maybe just something back here so it's not totally black, nothing, you know? Maybe just a dimly lit brick wall or something. This curtain looks nice. So, yeah, overall, good piece. Yeah, I mean, there's really a lot of good stuff going on. And again, very clear that you've spent a lot of time on the animation. All right, next we've got James. Yeah, I think the whole thing goes kind of fast, and I guess I thought I remembered it being slower, which makes me wonder if it was like if it was sort of sped up in After Effects or something, because I don't remember this being so quick. Just change the playback speed in the player to be slow. Um, and yeah, I mean, it already looks better that way. So I definitely think you need to slow it down. But again, I thought if I remember your Maya file, it wasn't this fast, so I feel like maybe it was the way you interpreted the frames in After Effects or something. You should check your interpretation. If you right mouse click in the on the clip when you import it and go to interpretation, you can just set the frame rate of the footage, and it should be the same as you have if it's set in Maya, which is 24 frames a second. But I mean, apart from that issue, the speed again, it's slower now. I mean, if it's funny, after now we've played this a few times, watch it normal speed. It'll seem really fast now, probably. Yeah. So the poses are pretty good. The animation's pretty good. It's just all too fast. Um, I think that you could do a little bit more with this hand at the end here, even if it's just a little bit more hanging by his side, or relax the fingers a bit, and not have the hand sort of just follow the body so much like it is. I think the lighting's good and is working well. Although there's something a little funny how it almost looks like the torch goes out here, like it turns off or something. I don't know. You might want to see if you can figure out what the deal is. Maybe it's being completely blocked by. Oh, I bet that's what's happened. So I think it's probably inside the rock, in that other shot as well, and here. So just make sure that torch doesn't intersect the rock. Make sure to keep out of the way of that, because I think that's what making it look like it goes out. Um, yeah, so you could fix that intersection stuff and slow it down, and I think it's gonna look much nicer. But yeah, this is a good piece. This is looking pretty good. Okay, next we have Joseph. All right, so this is coming together. I think that the water and sky, and especially the sky, is just very distracting. It's very black and white, super high contrast, a lot of movement. I mean, frankly, I think you'd be better off with just a still image of the sky, and even a still image of the water, because certainly, you wouldn't have that much movement on a pond either. And I understand you were trying to slow those down. Apologies for not being able to do much there, but right now they're just very, very distracting. And so what I would say is maybe you start out with a shot, simplify these. Again, still images would be fine. Start out with this, and I think you might, one thing for animation wise is if you can give them a bit more of a starting pose. It's a little bit too simple and symmetrical. But then I think then as soon as he starts moving, cut into a close-up of some shot, something like that, and so we can see the animation better. Yeah, and I think some of the same animation stuff I said before goes. Get, at least some animation. I understand he's, supposed to be sticking his arms out like that, but at least some animation on the shoulders, elbows, and wrists a little bit, just to keep his arms alive as he's moving around. Even if they're generally sticking out in front of him, they can kind of move and adjust a little bit. And I think the same would go with his neck, because it's weird that only his sort of legs and root move after a certain point, and everything else remains frozen. So even if it's generally supposed to look like that, I think maybe he might turn his head to look which way he's going, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, it's good to see that the rendering is happening, and looks like you've got some sort of a depth of field thing going on, which is helpful. But again, definitely cut into a closer shot, and probably just simplify the sky and water stuff you got going on. All right, next we have Yuri. So yeah, you've got a very kind of complete scene here, which is really impressive. I think the lighting turned out pretty well, even though you weren't able to use mental ray. It's good sort of dramatic lighting, and everything's kind of pretty well exposed, easy to see. Um, I think the camera choices have worked out pretty well for telling the story. No, no big suggestions there. I think the biggest thing is that the animation looks like it's in fast motion. Everything looks sort of sped up. Um, and so I would work on the timing a bit for that. I think maybe just sort of really, I would start by just evenly scaling the whole timing out um, so that just everything slows down a bit because it just looks, like I said, fast motion. And then again, this sort of looks like just good blocking to me. Like doesn't look as finished as it could be. And so some examples of things that would help is I think you rake the ears, so like the secondary action on the ears, so like when the head turns, the ears follow a little bit, for example. Um, and like when he lands, like kind of breaking up the pose a little bit, so that I might switch to QuickTime. So when he lands, what I would say is like when he makes contact, he should be fully stretched out, the legs straight, really as elongated as possible. And then he should compress down. So he should be fully stretched out and then over a few frames compress down by bending his knees, kind of curling his back, tilting his head, and then bend back up. Um, which you have it kind of coming back up a little bit, but he can compress much more. So he should start out stretched when he hits, much like the bouncing ball, stretched in contact, then he squashes, and then he, sort of comes back to normal. Mention the overlapping action on the ears, and again, look for stuff that's frozen, like his arms. There's no change at all. For example, the shoulders and elbows. In every pose, you want to kind of mess with every control at least a little bit. So, kind of maybe when he's spinning, you can kind of lead with his arm, sort of throw his arm ahead of him a little bit, even if it's subtle. And again, here now, he kind of looks at the camera and shushes, I guess, which is a fun idea, but the whole body, he's a mannequin except for his arm, right? So, lean forward, rotate the spine a little bit, tilt in towards the camera. Don't just move the arm. Every pose, try to adjust every control. And again, with this turn, so how do we turn? We don't kind of pivot everything all at once. You might look first and then set your foot down and then have the rest of the body follow, that kind of thing, but not just this sort of, he looks like he's sort of spinning on a like a lazy Susan thing there. And then you do anticipate here, which is good. Oh, and you got motion blur on, that's nice. But I think you could go further with that. I think because it's such a big jump, you want to anticipate that much more, which means compress further. Let's see how far you can bend him down and compress the knees and maybe tuck the head in, and then so then when he throws his head back up, it looks to stretch that much better. And I think again, when you land, you could, well, you're going down pretty well there. But again, we didn't get, it's a big jump, and we didn't get much anticipation. So if he's going to be going this way, you want to anticipate this way. So compress down, but also lean back this way a little bit before you go that way. Um, when he throws himself over, um, have one leg kind of hang behind the other and like swing them over a little bit one at a time, not completely, but right now they're very much simultaneous, and it'd look better if kind of one leg at a time. And again, when he lands, have one foot hit and then the other foot. And it almost looks like you're doing that here, like at first, but then then they both hit at the same time. Yeah, and you did a little thing here where it's sort of like you're following through with the arm, like he hits and then that arm moves down. That's good. Look for more of that. Do that with both arms. Do that with the ears. Um, this is the kind of thing when he grabs this, pause for a moment to show it has some weight and kind of lift it up a little slower. And then same with this, kind of grab it and then pause. And then you can move pretty quickly as he lifts it up and sets it down. And then and here he doesn't. I would go up, like he goes up just exactly high enough to sort of slide it. I would go up a little higher and then kind of plop it down. So there's sort of a little bit of a kind of an arc there. And the typing the code seems very fast, which isn't necessarily bad, but I don't know. Maybe you make it slightly less even, or a little some combination. Um, and again, can you compress? You are compressing there. Can you compress further? Maybe have the legs a little bit offset when they land. One hits before the other. And again, here, you have this tiny sort of one frame compression, but let's get a few frames, 3, 4, 5 frames where he compresses down and get the spine and head into that action, really crunch them up into a ball before you extend. And you can extend, like really elongate, like arch the back, look at the line of action, reach out the arms. You can really stretch them out. And again, that's a big jump. So how much can we compress them? How much can we bend those knees? How much can we curl the spine and tilt the head to really go down? And then he zips out of the frame. So again, very good piece. I think I think it's such a strong foundation for something that you could kind of keep improving and take further. So I think it's for this class, it's very good. But I think it's so good that it's something you'd want to keep working on and improving, because it's such a strong foundation for an even better piece. Next we've got Josh here. So this is a very strong piece. I mean, the character looks great. The lighting is nice. It'd be great to see it textured, but the animation is good. It's the camera choices are good. It's really good all around. It's a very nice piece. I don't have that much to say for improvements. I think the timing on some of these hammer blows look like they could be good. I think that the speed at which he goes backwards and forward, what I would expect is the wind back to be slower than the swing forward. So I'd kind of expect a bit slower wind back and then maybe a bit of a pause when he's, like slowing this down a little bit, and then just kind of pause for a moment there, a slight moving hold, and then bring it down. And it's also the speed of him bringing it down here. See how I'm going forward again. It's a little hard to tell. See how he actually looks like he's slowing down at the end. So here we go forward. He goes back, and then that's real fast. And then suddenly he hasn't made contact yet. It's that next frame. It's like, unless that was a bounce there. I don't think it was though. So that was weird that it sort of slowed down at the end of that one. And so this wind back looks better. See that one, yeah, that makes more sense to me, where it's a slower back and then a fast going forward. And then, so those were better. And then here when he's interrupted by whatever he's looking at, there's this sudden kind of quick movement of him moving the hammer down, so I would sort of slow that down too. And there's a couple sort of just things that feel a little quick and abrupt that you might be able to slow down a little bit. That part's better. And I like that tap tap before he makes his next hit. That's a nice touch. Tap tap, bang. Yeah, that ends very strong. So great pace, really. It's good. I think there's touch ups you can do, and it'd be nice texture and all that. But this is very strong. All right, next we've got Joseph. So we don't want that. Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on here. The lighting looks good. Looks like you get a real kind of daylight light source here. It has some cast shadows. I think we're running into an issue with the depth map shadows. You can really see this chunky edge of the pixelation of the shadow edge there, although surprisingly not as much here. But I think that you've got a few choices. You can increase the depth map resolution of the shadow to increase resolution so it's not so pixelated. You can increase the depth map filter to blur it, although shadows cast by the sun tend to be fairly sharp. And then finally you can turn off depth map shadows and turn on ray tracing and ray trace shadows. Then you'll get really sharp, clean shadows. So whichever, if you just turn up the depth map resolution and that does it for you, that's fine. It might render faster, but you have the option of doing ray tracing as well. So let's watch it again. I think some of this stuff really holds. Like either get out there and get an ice cream scoop and scoop it and videotape yourself, or watch someone else at a shop do it, or find something online, because I think that this effort it just takes more time to, unless the ice cream is like melted almost to the point of liquid, he's not going to scoop it out that. We want to really see some resistance when that hits the ice cream, so his hand can move down into the bucket fast, but once it does, it needs to really slow down as it passes through what I understand to be the ice cream there. And then again, that second one's just way too fast for going through ice cream. And then again, this motion, we talked about this before, but where it sort of looks like he's wiping his forehead, it needs to right there. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but what I imagine is he's supposed to be wiping his forehead. So I think you need to, put up the arm to the forehead, pause for a moment, move it slowly across the forehead, and then you can move it off. But right now it's very fast motion. It doesn't look like he's properly making contact or pausing beforehand. The bell rings, looking better. That would take some coordination to wave and do the bell ring at the same time. Yeah, so those are the main things that really jump out at me. The resistance of the actual scoop going through the ice cream, pause for the wiping the forehead, and those depth map shadows. And then I think do something to get rid of this black, maybe another, I don't know, just a wall here or something. It's just weird to have the giant black field of space on there. Okay. Okay, next is Evren. So this looks kind of odd. It's like it's blending between each JPEG, but extremely slowly, like crazy slow. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, it looks like something went very wrong in After Effects. Did you import as a sequence, or did you import as like individual images or something? Like a whole folder of individual images? I'm not sure if it has something to do with that. I'll at least play it back faster. But it's so slow, it's kind of hard to even judge the animation at this point. I wonder if it'll maybe drag through it or something. Yeah, that's a little bit better. That seems to kind of pop back there. For some reason it sort of freezes and pops back there. Oh, it looks like you've got the whole thing twice as well. Because he walks forward and does that thing, and then he walks forward again and does that thing. So yeah, you've got it twice, and it's crazy slow. And I think just check the way you did it in After Effects, the way you brought your images in. Make sure you're importing it as a sequence, and check your frame rate and settings in After Effects. And yeah, the animation hasn't come that far since we last saw it, although, like, again, it's a little hard to judge with this problem. I think the lighting's working okay. It has a sort of a sunset feel, and that looks good. You've got some cast shadows, and that looks nice. The environment's working, the rocks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's really hard to judge the animation in its current format, so I think you need to get that fixed and resubmit that to where it's playing back at the proper speed. Let me know, if you want, you can send me your After Effects file. I can try and see what's going on in there, or, let me know if you need help. Okay, we've got Lupita. So yeah, you've got a lot going on with the textures and lighting and that stuff. I think you've got kind of a good night look. I think you want to swap out his materials, changing them from whatever they are, maybe they're a blinn or fung or something like that, as well as the trees to a lambert, something that's less shiny. Everything looks very shiny. The trees look shiny, and his clothes look shiny, and his face looks shiny, and I don't think that's helping you. So yes, switch all of that stuff to a lambert, and that should look better. I think the animation you have has come together pretty good. I think it's improved a lot. I would just say maybe it's a bit short. Maybe you could have a little bit more of an ending feeling to the story that we're showing here. Some kind of, because right now it's just sort of the one shot. But given that, yeah, I think, pause a little bit back here, and then maybe come down a little bit faster, especially towards the end, to get that feeling of weight, And then when he hits it, follow through at least a little bit with a slight translation down on the root, maybe kind of a little bit of jerk forward of the head and stuff like that. Right now he kind of freezes when he hits it, but you want a little bit of that follow through. And you can do that with the root and the neck and those kinds of things. Yeah, it's good progress. Alright, we've got Christian. Okay, so I think you've got some good stuff going on here. I like that there's a real sense of a light source coming from the cabin. I think you could boost up sort of more of a moonlight, like kind of a big blue directional light there. Maybe you want to put some kind of sky or stars in the background, something like that. The walk looks a little bit stiff and a little bit unanimal-like. I think a big thing is the way the arms are moving in that kind of very short, jerky thing, and the way the hands are in that the fingers sort of splayed out, sort of stiff pose. So I think sort of relax the fingers, get a little bit of arm swing, elbows, especially the elbows look locked right now. And the stride, I would go for a much longer stride. He's got those big legs that can really stretch out. A longer stride, a little bit more, up and down on the root in those strides too. So it goes, sort of rhythmically up and down with each step. And so, loosening up the arms, longer stride, up and down with the root, all of those things are going to improve this piece a lot if you want to keep going on it. And then again, it's short, I'd like to see a little bit more, try to tell, it doesn't have to be like a full story in the sense of like a full-on plot, but a little bit of more of a feeling of beginning, middle, and end, like, maybe he reacts to what he sees, or I don't know, or he starts to run off, or the lighting changes and we get the sense that someone opens a door and he gets scared off then, or who knows, something just to give it a bit more of story and context, I think would benefit this. All right, next one is Rick. So it looks like you've made some improvements from the last one. I like the timing of the tree fall and his falling down. I think that I think you need to work on the walk here. Look at the yeah, I mean that first foot contact isn't too bad, but see how it's sort of like the legs are overextending a bit. You're going to want to take that root and move it down a bit so they don't need to overextend so much to take those steps. You know, and the same here, like his foot isn't even really, this foot's not really touching before that foot takes off. And again, because it can't reach because he's too high up. Also, you might want to rotate the hips the opposite way to put the kind of the forward hip forward and the back hip back. That will help with that kind of reaching issue as well. And then again, this foot should be sort of planted and stuck, and then here it's suddenly sliding as that one before that one goes down. And then again now, and then at the end here, they both just kind of slide forward without either one being planted. And so you definitely either, you know, he looks like he wants to stop, so either just have him stop here and fall from there, or have him take another step, but don't just have him kind of slide forward like that, because that looks kind of weird. And yeah, this is another one that would really benefit from some eyes. I think the lighting's good. I think you could actually, you have that kind of blue light from one side and like the fill kind of warm light from the left. I think you might even be able to tone down the warmer light just to get it to feel more nighttime forest and make that feel a little subtle, a little more subtle. And then texture-wise, this ground pattern is just repeating, you know, way too much. So you might want to, you know, either try a different texture or drastically reduce your UV repeat on that. All right, but yeah, I mean, I like that the piece has a feeling of, even though it's quite short, sort of a beginning, middle, end, and the overall flow to the thing is good. So nice work. All right, and now we have Todd. Yeah, this is looking good. I know you're working on facial expressions, and I think that's gonna take this a long way. I think that for someone who's about to just put a flower in a vase, the walk looks very kind of fast and businesslike, like rather than, you know, putting a flower in a vase, he's trying to, you know, catch a train or bus or something that takes him to work, kind of thing. So I think that sort of slowing that walk down a bit, you know, maybe you could argue, oh, you're sort of, you know, playing up what this character's like, that even when he does these mundane household things, that he, you know, sort of marches in an almost military fashion towards it, you know. But I would tend to think what would be more natural is, depending on what you're going for, is to slow it down a bit. That would seem more normal to me. And one good way to do that too is you could increase the length of your pauses, have kind of longer, you know, that moment right there when he's holding the flower up is nice. You could kind of hold that for even maybe a, you know, better part of another second, as long as it's a moving hold before he drops it in. But you know, this is good, solid animation. I think there's improvement, like slowing down that walk and then, you know, adding the facial expressions, but that's good. And I think the other thing would be to fill in the shadow side of the face, because if you look, it's a bit dark on this side, and the room is, you know, when you look at the whole room, it doesn't look terribly unevenly lit. Like you've got a big wall here that's going to have light bouncing off of it, so you could fill it in with the kind of bounce light off that wall. And you can still have the light side and the shadow side, that's fine, but it just gets a little dark here. And then once you put facial expressions on there and you really want to show them, that it's going to help. But yeah, this is a good piece, kind of well-rounded. Your textures are working, the lighting's working. It's a good character that's modeled well, and it's got the eyes going, and the walk's good, the animation's solid. So it's a very good all-around good piece. It's good work. All right, well, thanks everybody. This might be the last critique. So we have one more final thing here where you turn in your final project so you can make updates based on what I told you. And if you guys can turn it in done earlier, that would be good. Maybe what I will do is if I record another YouTube thing, I can email it to you through the messaging center so you can watch that. Otherwise, yeah, if you don't hear from me again, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody.